I started by reading the drawings carefully and making cutting lists. I then machined all my boards and timber before cutting my veneer to size and book matching it. I then glued my veneer to my boards and prepared the marquetry for the top panel whilst I waited. Once all the panels were pressed and the edges were cleaned up, I cut my top panel cappings to size, then biscuited and glued them. I used masking tape to hold them on, and I used cramps to make sure they stayed flush with the top. I left this to dry overnight, then removed the tape and cramps and sanded it, ironing out any dents before leaving it to the side for now. I then cut my cappings for the other panels, leaving them slightly over length at each end. I fixed these on using the same method as the cappings for the top panel. I left these to the side to dry whilst I made a start hand cutting my dovetails for the drawer. There were different kinds of dovetails on the front and the back, so I worked out an efficient method of cutting both that worked for me. Once my 4 drawer sides were together, the cappings had dried, so I sanded my panels down and cut the excess capping off on the chop saw. The spindle was in use once I had finished this, so I moved on to cutting my mortise and tenons on the support rails, as everything else needed to be spindled first. Once the spindle was free, Johnny taught me how to set up and operate it safely, using jigs or the power feeder where necessary. I first ran my unit carcass components with grooves for the back panel, miters on the ends and a chamfer on the front. I also ran my capping for the fixed shelf, as this would need to be in place before gluing. I glued the capping to the shelf panel and biscuited my unit tops and sides while I waited for it to dry. I then made a jig to drill out my dowel and shelf stud holes, and did this on both sides of the unit. My shelf was then dry, so I cleaned it up, then used the jig to drill my dowel holes on either side of it. This makes sure my holes will line up perfectly. I then gave all the inside faces of the carcass a proper sand and both sides of my fixed shelf before dry fitting it and checking for square. Once I was happy, I glued it together. Whilst this dried, I ran the grooves for the bottom panel of the drawer, then dry fitted it before sanding the inside faces and gluing that together too. By this time, the unit had dried, so I removed the cramps and sanded the exterior faces. I ran the grooves and chamfers on my door stiles and rails while I waited for the drawer to finish drying. I then cleaned up the outsides, screwed the bottom panel on and planed it down to fit in the unit. I had never used a domino machine before, so I practiced by making a square from some softwood offcuts I had. I then created a 45-degree jig so I could easily fit my door together using a chisel. I prepared all my components, then dominoed them together so I could measure a final size for my door panels. The spindle was in use again, so I made my jigs for the curves on the legs while I waited. I traced the curve from the one-to-one drawing onto some paper that I had, then cut out and stuck to my MDF. I could then accurately cut it on the bandsaw, then cleaned it up to ensure it would run smoothly. I fixed blocks and toggle clamps to it so the legs could be lined up easily and accurately, and handles so I'd have something to hold. After this, I ran the rebates and chamfers for the door panels on the spindle, then glued my door together. I used packers to ensure that the gap was kept even around the back. While I waited for it to dry, I cut most of the excess of the legs off on the bandsaw, then used my jig to create the curve on the spindle. I also ran the chamfer on the top panel. Once dry, I used my block plane on the high points and tried my cabinet scraper on the back before sanding all the faces. After this, I marked out and dominoed all 4 legs, support rails and the top panel. I dry fitted them to make sure that they came together properly. I then sanded 2 legs and a connecting rail before gluing them together. I used packers and a fixed base to make sure that the rail was in the right place before cramping it together and checking for square. I moved this to the side, then did the same process with the other legs and rail. This created a front and back frame. While these dried, I sanded the rest of my components ready. I then glued my support rails in, connecting the frames, and fixed the top panel to their legs to ensure they were kept square. I made my handles on the spindle while these dried. I cleaned it up again once it was dry to make sure there was no glue left on it, then drilled my holes for the screws that would fix the unit to it. I fixed on my handles with dowels and glue and applied a coat of Osmo oil to all my components, making sure that there were no runs. Once this had completely dried, I applied a second coat before fixing the unit to the table and inserting the drawer. I fitted the hinges to the door and fixed this to the unit before it was complete.